As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a podcaster. For me to live any other way was nuts. To me, those goody-good people who worked shitty jobs for bum paychecks and took the subway to work every day and worried about their bills were dead. I mean, they were suckers. They had no balls. If I wanted something, I just took it. I ran everything. I paid the bills. I paid the host. I even paid the masked maniac. Everybody had their hands out. Everything was for the taking. We always called each other good fellas. You would always hear from somebody. You're gonna like Don Tony. He's all right. He's a good fella. He's one of us. But if you're part of my crew, nobody ever tells you they're gonna get rid of you. Doesn't happen that way.
All right. I know. No. You don't want that to happen. I get it. I know. Yeah, I know. I know. Well, listen, she's in the right hands. Let her get, and hopefully this is the worst of it, you know? Yeah, no, I hear you. I hear you. You're right. No, you're right. Listen. Yeah. I know, I know, I know. I know. Well, listen, let her get the treatment, let her get over this, and then we got to work on it big time. I know. But the anesthesia is definitely the culprit, like the doctor said. It makes all the sense. Just listen to the message. I'll talk to you later about it. All right. Oh, boy, I'm so sorry, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Let me tell you something. Life could throw you some big-ass motherfucking curveballs sometimes. Somebody says I'm muted. Am I muted? Can't be muted. You guys, it's choppy? All right, one second. Fuck. How's it about now? How's it about now? You guys can hear me all right? Am I good? Okay. I've been doing this since 1997. And I could count on one hand shows that start like this. About 4 or 5 weeks ago, if you remember, while we were doing a sit down, I got a crazy phone call. And just to sum it up, we were going to finish this show early so we could visit one of my friends who's been battling some severe cancer. And I got a phone call halfway through this show to tell me that we're not going to see him later on that Sunday night. And the reason being is because he decided he wanted to be out of his misery a little bit sooner, if you know what I mean. We can't be too specific on YouTube. I'm learning the issues. So here we are a month later. And I know a lot of you on Patreon know some of this already because we get more personal on those shows. I promise you we'll talk about wrestling within 5 minutes. You have my word. Otherwise, I'll end the show and we won't go any further. A lot of you know that the day after Halloween, my brother's mother-in-law had a brain aneurysm. She was complaining of a bad headache. She told her husband it felt different. They took her to the hospital, ended up being a brain aneurysm. She didn't smell home ever again. She died about a month ago. My mother went in for valve replacement surgery 3.5 weeks ago. She had a pig valve put in 7 years ago and flatlined twice. My mother died twice and they revived her. She's had a lot of complications with this valve and they had to replace it again. This time they gave her a mechanical valve. So my father thought best thing for her is on Mother's Day last week, take her to Florida, let her relax, get away from all the stress, and they went to Florida. So what has happened in the last 3 days, for those that are curious? First of all, my father-in-law passed away. A lot of you know that he had stage 4 cancer and was having hospice at home. He died Wednesday night. I thought he had stage 4 lung cancer. Because I don't talk about really personal stuff like this with my wife's family, I didn't want to pry. But I find out that my father-in-law had stage 4 colon cancer, and the cancer spread to his lungs. So he died Wednesday, and we have the funeral this Tuesday. For anybody that is curious, that is him. He's not short. He looks like he's short, like my wife, but he's actually bending down because he's even taller than me. That's from our wedding. That's him to the right of my wife. So he passed away Wednesday, 78 years old. That phone call I just had was my father. My mother was just admitted not even an hour ago to St. Francis Hospital. Ever since she's had the surgery, she's had a bad fogginess, doesn't want to eat, doesn't feel well at all, to the point that my father had to take her to the hospital. They ran all these tests on my mother, came back okay. No blood pressure issues, no warning signs. So now what do they tell my father? They think it's coming from the brain. So I'm trying to appease my father to tell him what I think happened to my mom is that she's got something called POCD, post-operative cognitive disorder, because her local doctor thought it might be complications from anesthesia. In anesthesia, you think a day or two after surgery, you breathe out the rest of the gas and you feel fine. But when you have major heart surgery and you're much older, the anesthesia could affect your brain for up to 2 months. So right now my father's going nuts because he thinks she could be experiencing what just happened to my brother's mother-in-law. She died from complications from a brain aneurysm. Here's my mother, not even an hour ago, of this live show, being admitted in the hospital, possibly with something with the brain. Is that fucking crazy or not? In 1 month, I lost a good friend of mine. My brother's mother-in-law died. My father-in-law died 3 days ago, and my mother's in the hospital. So how's your day going? I know what some of you are going to say. Why am I here? Why am I doing this? My friends, do you honestly think I could pass up the possibility of talking about this thumbnail? You think I could have? Of course I could have passed it up. It's not that big of a fucking deal. Life is 10 times more important than Tony Khan ignoring all the analysts out there, ignoring Hollywood, ignoring the experts. But because Dave Meltzer claims he talked to one person in the WWE, that the buzz is that AEW might not get it. Suddenly Tony Khan gets triggered. Listen, the reason why I'm here doing this is because, just like for a lot of you out there, me doing these shows are an escape. That's why I started doing these in 1997. In 1996, I had a car accident, almost killed me. You guys, most of you know the details there. I still deal with pain to this day. I started doing a wrestling hotline because I used to chat with other wrestling hotlines, and they used to love my back and forth commentary, and they're like, why don't you do your own? So I started my own in 1997, and within a year or two, it was the #1 wrestling hotline in the United States. And here we are. So me doing these shows is an escape, because if I'm in that other room right now, I'm not a drinker. I'll probably have a cocktail or two. I'll probably feel awful. And my wife is already dealing with the death of her father. She's inside, devastated. So sitting here with all of you for about an hour, hour and a half, because we are going to finish a little earlier tonight, is an escape for yours truly. So I don't want anybody to think like, wow, look at all this stuff going on, and he'd rather talk about Tony Khan shit and other. No, this is an escape, man. You know, one thing that I've been doing with my hotline, my shows, podcast, when Kev was here, God rest his soul, one thing we always did since 1997, we would always interject a little bit of real life. You know, we don't want to just be robots and just read news and then give, you know, how many places out there we express our sincere condolences. You know, we are floored by the passing of, and you know those people writing don't give a flying fuck about the people that died in wrestling. But they go through the motions because they have to. You know, we talk about real life stuff sometimes because we try to have a little bit more of a personal connection. I know that may not be the best formula overall, but I always keep it real here. Keep it straight up real. And I just wanted to share a little with you what is going on. So if I'm a little bit off or a little bit rattled, you know why. So Jim Kahn says, JD from New York reminds him of an older millennial. JD has an awesome passion for wrestling. He has a style that you either really love it or you really hate it. One thing about him is when he expresses frustration, he means it. And I don't have to stick up for him. I really don't. I don't agree with all of his takes. That's what respect is all about and friendship's all about. You don't want to sit here and just be yes men and just gush over everything that someone says. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people out there that do it. We always try to keep stuff real, but he says what he means and he means what he says, and he is very outspoken about it. And like I said, you either love him or you hate him. But anyway, this show on Sundays is about all of you. I sit here. Sometimes we bring up a topic or two. Something big happens. And then I sit here and I answer your questions. I share your comments. I talk about wrestling or whatever. So that's what we're going to do. We'll stick around for about 90 minutes. I will let everybody know that does like download the audio versions of these episodes. I will trim out all of that beginning. And I'm sorry that I did that. It's just that, no joke, I ended up playing the outro instead of the intro. And as the outro was playing, I was like, all right, I'll just use the outro. And as that happens, my father calls me. And I'm like, what do I do? I mean, I don't want to fucking stay on the phone for 10 minutes and just have it stream and you just hear me on a phone call. So I thought disconnect the stream. We'll put it on pause. Life sucks sometimes, right? Rest in peace, Carlos. Rest in peace, man. But you know what? Here's some good news. I don't know if all of you are aware of this already, but Io Sky and Naruka, Evil Skies. We got evil in the skies. Naruka and Io Sky just got married. All the Japanese reports were revealing it. Yeah, they just got married. I think they got married, yesterday? Well, the news broke, I think, this morning. So congratulations to Naruko, and Io Sky. I think Naruka is the female evil. You know, I'm going to start talking to all the females that I hate. I'm going to, Naruka. It's like Matarazzi. Such evil news, right? Evil. All right, listen. I will tell you all right now, tomorrow, and I do expect to do a show after Raw. I mean, honestly, what am I going to do at 11 o'clock at night? We'll do a show tomorrow, but I will talk about this situation tomorrow with Rogelio El Cuatrero Reyes, the guy who beat the shit out of Stephanie Vicaire. We thought Mexico, you know what? They're putting rings around California. Raja Jackson gets 3 months in prison, and Rogelio Reyes gets 152 months, 50 times the jail sentence for what he did to Stephanie Vicaire. And lo and behold, I have a friend of mine, I talked about this on Thursday night. A friend of mine that tunes into the shows from Mexico sends me a news show that's played in Spanish. I don't understand Spanish. I know Chocha Buena, but that's pretty much it. So there's no subtitles. So I told my wife, I'm like, could you watch this and tell me what it says? And she's reading it to me, and it's saying something that he is sentenced to 12 years in jail, but he's not going to face any jail time, and he's going to wrestle. Huh? What? Here I'm like, I'm proud of Mexico. Mexico's setting the standard with the criminal justice. This motherfucker is going to be able to wrestle. Can you believe that? I'll get into it tomorrow because I'm still trying to dot the I's and cross the T's. How does that happen, man? How does that happen? I don't know. All right, listen, I'll be very quick about it. Ring of Honor had a pay-per-view over the weekend. Tony Khan did a media scrum. And someone asked him, not necessarily about the TV deal. If you go back and you watch that scrum, because I watched a lot of it, there was some interesting questions that were intentionally avoided that somehow ended up coming out of Tony Khan's mouth. And I tell you, man, I'm not saying this because of just my mind being rattled right now, but I mean this when I say this. I had so much confidence that Tony Khan really, may have grown up a little bit, that may have finally realized, like, hey, man, things are more important and this and that, and, you just address things. He goes on Ariel Helwani, he goes on with Coach and Vince Russo, and, you think like, hey, this guy's finally starting to grow up. And leave it to good old Dave Meltzer to just throw a monkey wrench in that shit. A fucking monkey wrench. Because what I listened to on the media scrum with Tony Khan talking about the future of AEW television on Warner Brothers Discovery, soon to be Paramount, HBO Max, however you want to look at it, it disappointed me tremendously. It really disappointed me. And you know me, I will tell you straight up, sometimes I compliment things and people don't like it. Sometimes I tell you the business side of wrestling, whether you like it or not. Wait till we talk tomorrow about the prices. Did you see the prices for the Knicks tickets? I don't know if I can show this to you. Oh, you know what? I probably can. They're now starting to sell advanced tickets for the Knicks NBA Finals. Now, keep in mind that the NBA Finals could be 7 games, all right? At least 4, I would think, in Madison Square Garden, if it were to go to 7. These are the ticket prices that are being sold right now. And in the boondocks, it's $7,000, $4,000. Ringside is $100,000. And I looked at this and I said to myself, that goes out to all the fucking people who got triggered beyond belief about WrestleMania tickets. And you look at NBA, you look at NFL, you look at baseball, you look at World Cup, you look at Taylor Swift concerts. I don't like that TKO is fucking going for the jugular with ticket prices, but this is fucking everywhere. When you see Andrew Yang, I have nothing personal against him, but that fucking reject, him and Kevin Nash should go have a baby. Change medical science, because this guy creeps his head around again like he did with the pandemic, And he thinks that, oh, union and this and that, and they're taking advantage of fans with ticket prices. Andrew Yang, I dare you to fucking talk about Knicks tickets. I dare you to talk about the fucking World Cup. I dare you to talk about Taylor Swift concerts. You put your head in the fucking sand, you derelict. So anyway, we get the Ring of Honor media scrum. And the topic of AEW's future comes up. Now, Tony Khan made a comment about David Zaslav that I loved. I listened to this and I was like, man, the press is going to ignore this because it's such a good answer. And I'm going to share that audio with you because I thought, man, all right, Tony Khan is saying the right things. Listen, here's the bottom line. And if you've been following my shows for the last couple of years, you already know part of this. I've been saying for a little over 2 years now that the future of AEW television is streaming. The future of WWE television is streaming. The future of all of wrestling is streaming. You see it happening right before your very eyes. A lot of WWE's programming is Netflix. It's ESPN app. They put it on the fucking free TV just as an advertisement to get people to subscribe to ESPN Unlimited. They're not giving an hour freebie because they're nice people. They're trying to get people to sign up and pay money. That's what they're doing. So WWE already has a lot of their content behind the paywall streaming platform. AEW's future, I've been saying it for 2 years, will be streaming. If it's on YouTube, if it's on Amazon, if it's on Netflix, if it's on fucking Disney, if it's on the blah, 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 blah channel, if they get a good deal, that's it. The people that love wrestling ratings, oh my God, they're going to be left with their dicks in their hands. Because you see what's happening right now with NXT on the CW. For those that, have you seen these economic sites that like to talk about wrestling ratings? Have you seen them talk about the CW ESPN deal? No, you haven't. They don't have a fucking clue. You know, they all they have left is NWA on fucking Comet with their rating. You have fucking TNA on AMC and you got CW. That's it. And USA Network. You know, with SmackDown. Once SmackDown is done with USA Network and they fucking go to Netflix, that's it. No more rating. You're just going to go to Netflix's top 10 and you're going to read it just like everybody else. The CW ESPN deal is very, very important because in the future, you're going to have NXT television streaming on ESPN. Why? Because CW is going to get more eyes and the commercial revenue that comes in through ESPN, CW is getting. What happens to CW's ratings? Oh my God, 400,000 viewers, 300,000 viewers, 200,000 viewers. Their ratings are going to be divided even worse because it's going to be available on the ESPN app, I think starting this summer. So when you see that, that's it. You're not going to be able to really compute NXT ratings like before. So why am I saying all of this? Because AEW television, if it happens to go on Netflix, if it happens, which is not obviously, if it happens to go on YouTube, goes on Amazon, goes on the Schmuck channel, or, you know, with Tony Khan talking about Jesus a lot, maybe the Christianity television network, wherever it is. If you get a good streaming deal, what's the problem? What is the problem? Why are people trying to say, and I'm saying this in defense of AEW, why are people trying to sell you doom and gloom if AEW goes to YouTube? Really, like what is it? You care more about ratings because ratings make you feel strong? Oh, 700,000 viewers, they're on the uptick. Blah, 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 blah. If you really care about AEW that much with the numbers, if they're on YouTube, go on fucking wrestlingfraud.com or some fucking India network and give them $20 and say, add 100 million views to this AEW television. Oh my God. You're going to see YouTube views. You're going to see 5 million views for Dynamite. You know, why are people trying to sell you doom and gloom? That's the future. Streaming television is the future for wrestling. So I'm watching all of this and I'm like, why are these people trying to sell you doom and gloom? So now you're probably saying to yourself, wait, DT, I'm confused. You did a thumbnail and you have Nick Khan punching Tony Khan in the mouth. You have Nick Khan. Hold on. There we go. Hold on. There we go. All right. You got Nick Khan punching Tony Khan in the cheek. Not in the mouth, the cheek. Turn the other cheek, Tony. Like you said on Ring of Honor, turn the other cheek. You have Nick Lopiccolo holding Tony Khan down. You have JD from New York laughing. So why am I saying this if I did a thumbnail of everybody beating him up? Well, a lot of people in the news world have ignored what Nick Lopiccolo said because they think he's got a personal vendetta against AEW, which he doesn't. All right, it's just that he rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, so they think he's public enemy number one. You look at Nick Khan. Nick Khan has been telling us for 6-7 years that everything is competition. Why would WWE not want to talk about AEW's television future? Everything is fucking competition to them. Of course, AEW, because it's the same genre. But that's common sense. If WWE didn't ignore it, you would be like, wait, what are you, stupid? Why are you ignoring that? That's your competition. Might be small, but it's still your competition. That's just common sense. And then you got JD making points, and JD saying, how come the news world is not covering this? How come the news world is not talking about what could happen with AEW's future? And I noticed it. I'm like, wow, like Nicola Piccolo, I don't know the guy. I don't know. I'm not friends with him, never talked to him. I saw him write a fucking novel about TV and distribution and TV deals and revenue and this and that and this, because he's been in the business. And you would think somebody like that who is in the know, you want to pay attention to. And everybody ignored that guy. And then you had John Alba recently say a couple of things. And because he's very well liked, he got a little bit of press, but he's very politically correct on how he puts stuff out there. It's kind of like he does it in a softer way, which is perfectly fine. Not everybody has to be rough around the edges, and I mean that. So now we get to the Ring of Honor media scrum. And the talk about the TV future comes up. Now, I want to first share with you 90 seconds of Tony Khan talking about David Zaslav, the person who is coming in that is going to be involved in this deal with Warner Brothers Discovery, taking everything over. And I want you to listen very closely to, not David Zaslav, Ellison. Zaslav is the current. Ellison is the future. Excuse me. Ellison. He talks about Ellison, who's coming in. Now, sure, this may not happen the way Tony Khan thinks it's going to happen, but now you got it coming out of the horse's mouth, what he believes is the future with regards to AEW, Paramount, HBO Max, and Ellison. Here's what he said.
You couldn't ask for better management. And when David Ellison, because I do think it's going to happen, when David Ellison takes control of Warner Brothers, we'll have the leadership of one of the most, first of all, one of the most accomplished filmmakers, somebody who has done so much. When I talk about this period of time that I mentioned where there's turmoil, of course, it affected live wrestling industry and being able to sell tickets because everybody was shut down in the pandemic. This is somebody who really contributed to saving the movie business. And his movies, in particular, Top Gun Maverick, have done great things for the theater business. And he's also somebody that has a lot of knowledge of sports. We've worked closely with Skydance Sports. They do an incredible job with NFL films. I'm on the fan engagement and major events committee of the NFL, and I've also done NFL films projects myself and work closely with Skydance Sports. They are the very, very, very best. David Ellison is the best possible person to come into Warner Brothers. That's why I'm so excited about how this has broken and turned. And somebody that is a fan of professional wrestling, somebody who's the same age I am, who grew up watching wrestling. That's a great opportunity for us. There's already such a great sports package and great sports assets at Warner Brothers. And when you think about the sports assets of Paramount, the opportunity for us all to come together and compete together, it'll be a more competitive, stronger company together. And with AEW on HBO Max and TBS and TNT, this is a great opportunity.
not bad comments. Not bad, right? I mean, you see some people out there that are very, very educated, but they're kind of giving you the thoughts of doom and gloom. And here you have Tony Khan, who's excited. What is the bottom line with AEW's future on TBS and TNT? It is simple. It's what we said a year ago, and it's what we say now. No one knows until Paramount has the keys to the house. They have the keys to the house. People think, oh, there's no chance wrestling will stay on TV. There's no chance of this. There's no chance of that. Who are they getting it from? They're getting it from what they believe are their analytics, their expertise, their knowledge of this business in general. They're not talking to Ellison. They're not talking to Zasloff. They're not talking to anybody on the board of directors in Paramount. They're not. So anybody that's telling you that this is going to happen or this is going to happen or this is going to happen, no, they don't know. Until Ellison has the keys to the house or the keys to the store, and he opens the store up and he looks at it, he's like, oh my God, got this shit. That's when you start talking about it. Right now, no one is in the know. No one is, not even Tony Khan, because Ellison doesn't have the keys to Warner Brothers Discovery yet. That's the bottom line. So I don't care how polished or how beautiful somebody's complexion is, or they're wearing a suit, or they're very loud, or they're very soft-spoken, or they tweet fucking 18 paragraphs, or this and that. At the end of the day, they know just as much as I know, that you know, that Tony Khan knows, and everybody else knows. Until Ellison has the keys to go in there, no one knows what the future will be. You can't turn around and say in advance, hey, just give you a little inside. They're not going to renew you, so you might want to start looking for options. that you cannot do that. We talked about that. Remember recently the rumor killer that Tony Khan dispelled the rumor that Zasloff told him in the summertime that Warner Bros. Discovery would be up for sale. It's going to be up for sale. That's violations. That's crimes. You can't do that. You can't do that. Nobody even bothered to look it up to see common sense. You can't do that. Only people that know it are board of directors and the people on both sides, and then they agree to bring it public. You can't turn around and tell friends or business partners or investors or whatever. You can't turn around and say that in advance, like, shh, just letting you know. That's those are crimes. But nobody brings that up. Not even the economic sites bring that up. So now I hear Tony Khan's comments, and I'm like, good, Tony, good. No one knows. He hopes to have that relationship. What you got out of Tony Khan's mouth is you hope he has that relationship with Ellison. Then Mr. Meltzer comes in. Now, I was going to get the audio from it, but honestly, there was a few things going on today that kind of fucked things up a little bit. Dave Meltzer goes on his newsletter and writes something that I almost want to vomit right now, because I want you to hear listen very closely to what Dave Meltzer said about WWE and AEW's TV future. Put the common sense part of it aside. I want to just read to you what Dave Meltzer said, because there's another audio clip for Tony Khan in a moment. So, Dave Meltzer says, quote, one person in WWE, think about that, one person. It's obviously not the executives. They ain't talking to Dave Meltzer. It could be somebody in fucking NXT. It could be somebody that works in the fucking office, works in catering. One person. That's like when Coach said, my buddy at Disney says that ESPN is having. I'm like, who's your buddy at Disney? Is he an executive, or is he in fucking Florida dressing up as Goofy? One person in WWE. So Dave Meltzer writes this in his newsletter because he talked to one person in WWE. Listen, one person in WWE noted to us this week that WWE has definitely spread word among some, if not many, that AEW won't be on Paramount Skydance and question if they can get a viable deal somewhere else. One person there noted that people at the highest levels are talking like AEW won't get another deal, but those are the kind of stories that spread previously and at the last negotiations, not that they wouldn't get a deal, but their deal would be the same level or perhaps a little lower to blah, 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 blah. Of course, you want to spread. Listen to this final sentence. Oh my God, listen to this final sentence. Of course, you want to spread that uncertainty to keep talent thinking about going to AEW. One person told him that. You think that person talks to Nick Khan? You think that person talks to Ari Emanuel, Mark Shapiro? You think they don't even talk to Mark Kopani. And because he claims he spoke to one person in WWE and says that, first of all, it's common sense that anybody in wrestling would be curious, hey, I wonder what's good AEW's future going to be. See, Dave thinks immediately, based on one person, that WWE's motives are to talk their wrestlers, don't go to AEW. You don't know what their TV deal may be. You don't know what their TV deal may be. You know, that's ridiculous nonsense. You get a job for a wrestling company to make money, secure your family, pay bills, buy things. You don't turn around and say, what's the TV deal? What's the TV? Are we streaming? Are we going to be on Warner Bros. Discovery? We're going to be on Comet. You know, this is what retards say. So you hear that. Now, I'm sorry for ranting for so long, but I had to set it up this way. Now, in reflection of what I said leading up to this particular moment, and in order for me to do this particular moment, let's put the goofy picture on the screen. You heard me talk about Nick LaPiccolo in Hollywood writing tons of stuff as to why AEW's future TV deal is going to be difficult and uncertain and brings up how the business works. You hear other people, journalists out there, that are getting into it in detail. Because it appears to be negative, they're the enemy. You pay attention to other news outlets out there ignoring it. You hear JD questioning, how come so many people are ignoring this? So now you get to Tony Khan and his media scrum once again. I would have loved to share the video because there is a 15-second pause where he's just looking up into the heavens. Just talked about Jesus. He's in the heavens. And you're thinking to yourself, he doesn't know what to say next. And he's got this really deep pause. And I'm not making fun of him, but I'm watching this for 15 seconds. And I'm like, Tony, what, like, cause you'll hear what he says that, you know, he's a little bit more religious now. And he turns the other cheek and, you know, he's trying to, you know, he's not the perfect person. And up until that moment, I thought it was perfect. Yeah, Tony Khan is growing up. He sees personal stuff. His mom is not doing well. He's getting older. People around him, you know, people get medical issues, challenges, you know, things go on. You know, he's getting older. He's getting a little mature. So, yeah, you learn from your mistakes. You know, I mean, it's a part of life. But then after that 15 seconds of silence, the light bulb goes off. And out of everything that has been talked about, out of everything over the last 6 months that you have read and heard about AEW's future, this is what sparked Tony Khan to finally say something about it. And lo and behold, it's Dave Meltzer. Dave Meltzer claiming he spoke to one person, and Tony Khan goes on this rant. And as you're hearing this, understand, no, not Nick LaPiccolo, not John Alba, not anybody in media, not JD, nobody, not me, nobody. But Dave Meltzer talking to one person in WWE. Suddenly, this is the perfect example of why Tony Khan turns the other cheek. And when you hear this conversation, by the end of it, Tony believes that this really happened. Tony believes that all of WWE is talking about AEW's future because just listen to it.
In this last year, 2 years, I think I've tried to soften my approach and apply that more. What would Jesus do? And turn the other cheek. And nobody's perfect. I definitely haven't always applied it perfect, but you'll see me take a lot more. There's a lot of these things. And
awkward pause.
Like, today, like I saw a thing today that, and it's just a report. I don't know if this is true. It could be true, but a lot of these reports, there's substance to them, although you never know firsthand when you're hearing third-hand reports. I saw a report today that somebody in WWE is telling people within WWE, talking about AEW's next TV deal and talking about what we're doing. And I was surprised by that. And all I'll say is that what they said could not be further from the truth, and they're entitled to their opinions. I think, I've been trying to be respectful to them and try to conduct myself as a gentleman, and then for them to go on background and spread these things, I'll just turn the other cheek. And maybe a couple years ago I wouldn't have done it like that. Thank you.
It started with it started with rumor. Then it went to one, and by the end of it, it went to them. It went to them. All because of what Dave Meltzer wrote. Listen, I have been a lifelong supporter of Dave Meltzer, but you need to understand that no matter how nicey Tony Khan gets, I personally now after what I just heard and how everything else was ignored, but him writing that he heard from one person who says that the higher ups and this and that, and then Dave finishes by saying, you're like, it's kind of what WWE does, and blah, 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 blah. By the end of Tony Khan's conversation, he takes it as fact. And this is why Tony will never learn. I'm telling you, there needs to be, for the benefit of AEW, there needs to be a huge falling out with AEW and Dave Meltzer. I don't wish it. I don't want it. But Dave Meltzer is toxic for Tony Khan because Dave Meltzer could fucking say anything and it gets Tony Khan's attention. That's what it is. It's like blowflies to shit. It's like blowflies to dead bodies. You could fucking you could put a dead body, in a fucking field, and cats will be a mile away and, don't think nothing of it. We're a mile away. We don't think nothing of it. You drive by, you don't think nothing. I ain't stopping. Fucking blowflies. That's it. Tony Khan, Dave Meltzer is the dead body, and Tony Khan is the blowfly. Dave Meltzer says anything, and not only does he react to it, but he's got this 15-second awkward pause. I thought he was going to bring up personal stuff. And that 15-second pause, he's like, what do I say? What do I say? What do I do? I got it. The evil WWE spreading bullshit. A couple of years ago, I wouldn't have turned I honestly think Tony Khan has to turn the other cheek because of the Netflix deal, because of the ESPN deal, because the NFL Network laughed at him, because a lot of the cards are against him, because his future in the cable TV industry is uncertain. So sometimes you got to just grind your teeth, suck it up, and you got to keep your mouth shut because your options, this is not AEW of 2019. This is not AEW prior to WWE going to Netflix, signing the ESPN deal, having these insane, gigantic deals. Now you got to kind of put your tail between your legs and try to be the good guy out there. And unfortunately, you let it simmer enough, and then the true Tony Khan comes out. The religious stuff, I believe. I believe Tony Khan 100% of what he said about the religious stuff. But at the end of the day, this guy has learned nothing. Anything that Dave Meltzer says, he takes as gospel. And that is always going to be a huge fucking problem with AEW. And again, even Dave did a clip today saying that everybody predicts their demise. A lot of people don't predict their demise. Whack jobs out there say AEW will be closed in 5 years. People like me and a lot of others out there have said he's a billionaire. He could fucking lose. I've said this 1,000 times over the years. Tony Khan could lose $100 million a year for 20 years. And that is only a fraction of what they're worth. All right. The idea that they're going out of business is nuts. The only way they go out of business, if Tony Khan just changes his mind about wrestling and doesn't want to sell it to anyone else, and he just wants his baby to close, he started, he finishes it, or a serious business disaster happens. That's it. But AEW's future is streaming, and that's not a negative thing. But I wanted to share, because honestly, I don't think Tony Khan has a choice. Because if Tony Khan acts radical, see, he has a nice relationship with David Zaslav. He doesn't have a nice relationship with Amazon. He doesn't have a nice relationship with a lot of other networks out there. A lot of them out there have this idea that he's, Shad Khan's son. That, he's just, his father gives him billions to play with because that's what rich people do. He doesn't have the cards that he used to have. So he's got to kind of be the nice guy. He's got to make it seem like, we're easy to do business with, not be a laughing stock. So I personally think, turn the other cheek. I'd rather turn the other cheek. You got no choice, my friend. You got no choice. It's like if you're in the mafia and you fuck up and you think that they're going to turn around and whack you. And you got to turn around and you got to put your tail between your legs and you got to smile and you got to be nice and you got to try to earn everybody's faith and respect and belief, trust. That's what you got to do. So unfortunately, in the world of millionaires and billionaires, no one out there is going to turn around and say, leave the kid alone. Let him have the Paramount. Let him stay on HBO. Come on, it's a hobby. He's a kid. When you have billions and billions and billions and billions and billions, you are a threat. Because this motherfucker don't have a family. This guy don't have support, child support. He don't have kids to raise. He could turn around and say, I'm going to inject $5 billion into my company just to fuck everybody else up. I'll sign everyone in TNA just because. I sound like Vince McMahon, but when you have no money, leave him alone. Come on, he's no threat. He's no threat. It's kind of like if you're 7 feet tall and a fucking 40-pound midget comes up to you, and he's like, come on, motherfucker, I'll beat your ass. And you look at him and like, he's 7 foot tall. You're fucking 30 inches tall. I'll kick your ass, you fucking 7 foot freak. Everybody, just leave him alone. Look at him. He's fucking, no. When you're 7 feet in the wallet, you are a threat. You could be as nice as you want. Nick Khan will still look for the other cheek to punch. And other people will as well. And the reason why people laugh is because of that remark he said, taking creed of what Dave Meltzer said, talking to one person, and don't even know if it's true. I'm going to inject a poison. Did you see how over the past couple of months, everybody now shows that Vince picture with the TKO on the seat? Remember who was the first person? We even made the soundbite. Remember TKO. It's on the History Show. So, all right. So that was my rant. Kind of got my mind off of problems of the world today. That used to be a great 80s hip hop song. Problems of the world today. That's all I got. That's all I got. So how long have we gone so far? We've gone 45 minutes about. We've gone about 45, 50 minutes. We'll stick around for like 30, 40 minutes. So let's get into some questions, shall we? First, if you don't mind, I'd like to just give a couple of acknowledgments for some who've, listen, we answer everybody's questions on these shows, but those who financially help the cause and help me pay the bills and sometimes expand, they got to get a little bit of early acknowledgement, right? I think it's only fair. So shout out to Tommy D. Thank you very much for your generosity. What's my take on the reports that WWE may bring back Baron Corbin? Oh my goodness. Baron Corbin. Why would you bring back Baron Corbin? I mean, this guy was there for 12 years. 12 years. And I read some reports today about Danhausen. Oh, it's a skit and this. The only thing that has changed with Baron Corbin since he was released is that he's 2 years older. Why would you bring him back? That's madness. That's madness. It's not like he reinvented him. He's a bishop. He's a bishop. Good. Fucking salute this, bishop. What are you going to do? Heal WWE? I shall heal thee. You know, what are you? You're a fucking guy that bragged about driving Ferraris and having all this crazy money. You would have thought with that crazy money, you would have fixed your fucking bad hairline. But you bring him back for what? The WWE, for what? What demographic is clamoring for Baron Corbin to return? What? A Danhausen skit? Good. Fucking bring him back and the Danhausen could put a curse on him and let him, you want to do the rich angle? Let him get run over by a Brinks truck. I am not in favor of Baron Corbin returning because he hasn't done anything since he left to make me feel like, wow, I see, I see him repackage. He changed it. It's just like Cameron Grimes. I felt bad for the guy. He did the crying video. I'm going to make WWE regret they made a mistake. And for 2 years, he did nothing. He did nothing. It was the same. I saw seminars. I saw indie appearances. And I'm like, oh, this is the repackaged Cameron Grimes? What's repackaged? The only thing different is he's not crying. And then he signs with MLW. And it's like, nothing against Cameron Grimes. I'm like, what have you done since you've been released to make people regret that you were let go? So that's how I feel about Baron Corbin. So nothing personal against him. Trust me, I don't want a Ferrari because if I have a Ferrari in my neighborhood, they'll key it up. They'll just write, privileged all over it. My neighborhood, you want to drive around with a Kia. You don't want to drive around with a Ferrari. So Todd Pelkey, I hope I broke it down good enough, my friend. It sums up. The whole AEW TV situation, you could sum it up in two ways. Number one, no one knows until Paramount has the keys. Period. No one knows till they have the keys. Number two, AEW is going to try to portray themselves as victims. Dave Meltzer is right at the front of that line. The evil WWE talking about that. Anybody in wrestling would want to talk about AEW's future on TV. Why would it not be a talking point? That's news, not executives. And no one in WWE has confirmed that WWE has told them, you don't want to go there. They're going to be on YouTube. That's retarded. Why would you even write that? Because he wants to portray AEW as the victim. That's the way it's always been. And that's why Tony Khan takes so much attention to it. Look at him. I'm nice. I'm friendly now. I turn the other cheek. I believe more in Jesus. I have faith. I'm a changed person. And despite all that, these evil people still want to go after me. Yeah, welcome to the business world, the world of millionaires and billionaires. No sympathy. That's what happens in that world. No sympathy. They don't turn around and say, leave the billionaire boy alone. Leave him. Oh, come on. Leave him alone. Who does that? Fucking people on X. Tony Khan didn't release anybody during the pandemic. He's a wonderful person. If AEW would have been a publicly traded company, the stock would have traded at 19 cents. If their executive didn't let people go because it's the right thing to do. I commend them for doing that. But that's the reason why it's not a publicly traded company. Because you publicly traded company, people invest because they want to see the company grow. They want to see you maximize as much revenue with the least amount of expense as possible. And when you see the people online, how could you release people when you're making record profits? Those are the people you got to stay away from the most. They are the most dangerous. They're like Andrew Yang with the exception that they dropped out at kindergarten. They're like the brain dead, dumb, Fast Times of Ridgemont High version of Andrew Yang. At least Andrew Yang is educated and he's very, very smart. And he picks his shots to move right in there. It's kind of like a guy that goes to a funeral and there's a whole bunch of fucking, mourning women there and they're all fucking single. Like, hey. Some people go to funerals, try to pick up. Or you go to a singles bar, you find your spots. You try to find your spot. I'm going to move right in there. She's on the rebound. I'm going to go right in there. I'm going to get that money, man. I'm going to get that fucking power. And it's on the women's side as well. Thank you very much, my friend. Thank you, Todd. Lost but found. DT, are Haynes, Williams, and the Saints all playing the same character? Why did they not build up Roxy or Paige versus AJ? Haynes, Williams, and the Saints all playing the same. Am I missing something here? Who is Haynes Williams? Are we talking about the New Orleans Saints and this shit that's going? Someone in the chat room, don't super chat that. Is this about what I've been reading about the New Orleans Saints online with that controversy? Is that what this is about? We'll get back to that in a minute. I'll wait for some comments. But as far as why are they not building up Roxanne Perez or Paige versus AJ? Because AJ, this was a contract. Come in at this time, finish at WrestleMania. I'm sure she didn't know that Paige was going to make her return along the way, but there's no freebies. AJ Lee's not going to turn around and say, hey, let me stay for one extra week. I got to have a match with Roxanne Perez. I got to have one with Paige. We have to have the return match. No, that's business. At the end of the day, no matter how much you love AJ Lee personally, no matter how much she genuinely is liked, and I think she's an awesome person. I don't know her personally, but AJ is a good person. But at the end of the day, what you saw on television was a contract agreed on a certain number of dates with a certain list of opponents. Not every opponent could be granted. And once WrestleMania came and gone, that was it. That was it. So it's not a matter of building it up. This was always the end game. This wasn't suddenly that she got injured or changed her mind or, she's not back and can't get, back in the swing of things. This was a contract with a clear finish, which was WrestleMania. Maybe she comes back later this year. Maybe she comes back in time for WrestleMania next year. I don't know how long Paige's contract will be, but there's not, why are they not building? Because that was never the plan. That was never the plan. All right. So what am I? Oh, wait a minute. I just figured out what he said. It just, forgive me for being a little cloudy because everybody in the chat room didn't figure out what he said. It just fucking hit me like a ton of bricks. He doesn't mean Haynes like the underwear. I think what he's saying is, are Carmelo Hayes, Trick Williams, and Ricky Saints all playing the same character? Is that what he was saying? I think that's what he was saying. All right, now it makes sense. I figured it out. All right, here's my take. Carmelo Hayes has dibs. Carmelo Hayes has dibs. He's been on the main roster for a while. I don't mean to be a jerk. I am a fan of Carmelo Hayes. No question about it. But do you remember when Carmelo Hayes, and a lot of you remember this, remember when Carmelo Hayes won the United States title? He was even in the John Cena tournament, and he had a great showing. The fans cheered, and you had people in the podcasting world saying, they're finally going to put the Jets behind Carmelo Hayes. This is the turning point. 2026 will be his year. It's going to be an insanely big year for Carmelo Hayes. Remember that? I don't want to name names, but there were quite a few of them. When they saw the performance They immediately said, WWE's finally putting the Jets on Carmelo Hayes. He's going to have a huge 2026. You even had Ringside Fools, Ringside News report, and you could Google it if you think I'm lying. The WWE the creative in WWE is going to start giving Carmelo Hayes the push that everybody's been demanding for. And I sat here and I said, wishful thinking. And what happened right before WrestleMania? No one wanted to talk about it. Hey, Mello, great job with the United States title. Thank you for keeping it warm. Unfortunately, we're going to have Sami Zayn lose it to Trick Williams at WrestleMania. Not you, because you're talented and everything, but you just don't have that connection with the fans like Sami Zayn does. You could shoot, you could hit, you could miss, you could hit 93 free throws, you could flip, you could do all this shit you want, you could fucking ball, you are the man. But unfortunately, Sami Zayn just has a little bit more. So thank you for warming up that. Boss, I have an idea. Why don't we do a three-way? I gotta go. My wife's calling me. I have to go. We'll talk about it after WrestleMania. No buts. That's what happened to Carmelo Hayes. You know, people could say what they want online, and it's emotional. It's not rage baiting. It's just grabbing your emotion. You feel it. You taste it. Yeah, they are finally giving them. Yeah, 2026 is going to be his year. Yeah, yeah, right. We're already in the fucking month of May. We're almost in June. How's Carmelo Hayes' first half of 2026 going? All those people out there. Half the threads you won't be able to find anymore because they delete them. They go back, they go a year ago. Hey, what did we say a year ago? What did we report? Ooh. It's kind of like 2 years ago, a year and a half ago. WWE signed Alberto El Patron when they bought AAA. Oh, they signed them already. Yeah, they signed them. There's a lot of stuff like that. Look, I don't think Trick Williams has the same character as Ricky Saints or Carmelo Hayes. They're all cocky confident. They're all braggadocious, but in a lot of different ways. Ricky Saints does not give me the same aura that Trick Williams does. And Carmelo Hayes is very cocky confident, but Carmelo Hayes, you kind of root for more. And I know this is going to sound awful when I say it. Please don't take it the wrong way. But Carmelo Hayes comes off as an underdog. I honestly think if Vince McMahon was still in power, we're going to put a U on a cape. We're going to be the underdog for the WWE. Carmelo Hayes comes off as an underdog for a while. Ricky Saints comes off as overconfident. Trick Williams comes off as having it. And listen, I am a fan of all three. I've been big fan of Ricky Saints going back to NWA days. And yes, I should have been a fan even earlier. But Ricky Saints, overconfident character. Carmelo Hayes, underdog, but confident character. Trick Williams has it. Trick Williams is money. So no, all three are not the same. And I'm so glad I figured that out. Because I honestly thought he was talking about the New Orleans Saints. Yeah, there's been some controversy online with the New Orleans Saints. There's a few things going on. So I don't know what specifically, but they definitely passed up on my newswire a couple of times. You know why I think I have New Orleans on the brain too? I just figured it out too. No joke. I started working on next week's history show already. And next week is the year anniversary that WWE announced that they were not going to have WrestleMania 42 in New Orleans. Instead, they were going to have it in Vegas. That happens this coming week in wrestling history. That's why I had New Orleans on the brain too. So there's a few reasons why. So kind of like, you know, my head's a little scrambled right now. So Jim Kahn, thank you very much. We talked about JD a little bit earlier. Daniel San says wrestling all around is struggling, and with the World Cup and America's birthday celebration, it could be a bleak summer. Celebrating America's birthday is always a good thing. I'm proud to be an American. Yeah, we're not perfect. I don't know anybody that is, and we do have a lot of faults, but that doesn't mean that you can't live you know, not live by example, but live and treat people the way you want to be treated. You know, I mean, there's a lot of shit going on in this world today, and shit is crazy, man. Things are insanely expensive. You know, it feels like billionaires are getting richer, millionaires are getting richer. The gap between like, you know, like things that we used to enjoy as like a day out with family is not approachable anymore. Even for a typical like regular baseball game or a concert or something like that. You know, it's kind of like, you know, like people ask me on Patreon sometimes, like, oh, what's the first concert you ever went to? My parents took me to the Jacksons, the Victory Tour. I think it was in 1984. That was my first ever concert. First ever concert I bought tickets for was Prince's Purple Rain Tour, which to me was fucking amazing. But the thing is, you know, I always remember it to this day because it was my first and because it was such a spectacle. But a lot of other ones that I'd gone to, you know, I don't remember all that much. I mean, it's nice and everything, but now, you know, you go to a concert, it's almost like once in a lifetime. You know, it's not something where you can just go like, hey, you know, who's coming to the Garden next time around? Yeah, let's go to that too. You know, things are getting priced out of our league, even with television now. I honestly think the future of like streaming TV is not going to be like where you pay a membership and you get ad free. I think it's just going to be a matter of, do you get just a couple of ads or do you get showered with Conrad Thompson level ads? And I love Conrad. I say that jokingly. That's what it's coming down to. All right. No, we won't play any commercials. You know, the show will be commercial free, but you'll see an ad here. You'll see a banner here. You'll see this. You know, I laughed when Karen Nash said that WWE looks like a fucking NASCAR with all the ads and everything. You know, I was looking at old sports and I was looking at old AAA and I was looking at other, you know, events out there. I look at UFC and, you know, yeah, they all had crazy ads. It's just the placement of it that's the problem. You know, it's just because they put ads in certain areas you don't expect them to put it. You know, I'm tired of seeing a Slim Jim on a fucking table. You know, and you see a logo on a fucking chair. You know, that's where I think it gets goofy. But having ads, you know, that's what it is. So, I don't think it's going to be a bleak summer. I honestly think, you know, the economy will get a little bit better. We could only hope. But the summer will be as bad as you allow it to be. That's how I look at it. It'll be as bad as you allow it to be. Just focus around the things you enjoy. Unfortunately, a lot of it will probably be in the comfort of our own home because it's too expensive to go out and do stuff. Even when I go out to eat, you know, even breakfast now, who the fuck, you know, when did breakfast for two people turn out to be $60, $70? You know, I just want eggs, coffee, hash browns, and toast. You want a bagel with that? Sure, thank you. And then it's fucking $25 a person, plus tax, plus tip. And it's like, come on, man, a fucking egg. How much is an egg? You know, come on. It's ridiculous. So, all right. Mr. Webb. Hey, Mr. Webb. He thinks Dave Meltzer is being paid by Tony Khan. I don't think he's getting paid by Tony Khan. I really don't. But there's obviously this friendship there. You know, they're on the speed dials. Listen, I have said this for years, even before AEW was around. You know, I've been a supporter of Meltzer for a very long time. That's why I kind of have a hard time letting go, because, you know, I enjoyed what he did, and he was very generous in some of the causes that I did in the past, and I'll always appreciate that. But the thing is, I've always said this forever, that, you know, he is a big fan of Japanese wrestling. I am not. So when he has these awards and he has names on there that I've never heard of before, I compare it to when you go to the Golden Globes and they have all these movies for Best Picture and some of them don't even fucking speak English. And I'm like, I don't remember this movie showing up in my movie theaters where I was at. What was it, some fucking Hartford Film Festival? Why is it for, you know, it's just, you don't follow, it doesn't mean we all have to follow the same thing, but, You know, he has a right to cover what he wants to cover. He has a right to enjoy what he wants to enjoy. If he focuses more on Japanese wrestling compared to someone else, that is not a negative, and that is preference. That is preference. Some people out there will focus more on the indies than I do. Some people will focus more on TNA than other people do. Some people will focus on other things. You know, to each his own. Everybody should offer something different. But I'm just saying, like with Dave Meltzer, he has this friendship with Tony Khan, and it is very strong. And, you know, I believe Tony Khan buys the newsletter. I'm sure he's spent money that way. But no, I don't think he's on a payroll. I really don't. I don't. I believe Tony Khan probably subscribes to his premium channels, but I don't think he's on a payroll. I don't. Jim Khan says he saw a couple of episodes of AEW after 2 years and has more matches, gets in and out of promos easier than WWE, a quicker pace than WWE. You know, it's kind of like total nonstop action. I remember when NWA, TNA, they were pushing total nonstop action. And after a while, you had all these fucking long promos. Hogan came in, the Billionaires Club, the fucking this. Promo. Where's total nonstop action? You know, and it kind of like took their eye off the ball. AEW is a different style than WWE. Will Ospreay could say until he's fucking blue in the face that they have the best wrestling. I look at it like off-Broadway. Some people in off-Broadway have the best acting. You know, just because you're a Broadway play doesn't mean you have better actors. You have more famous actors. But I've watched off-Broadway plays. I was sitting front row watching off-Broadway plays, and I said to myself, wow, these fucking people are amazing. And they would never make it on Broadway because they're not a famous person. They're not a larger-than-life personality. Doesn't mean they don't act better than somebody who is in Hollywood that is getting a high-profile Broadway play position because of their name value. So when I hear Ospreay say that, it's not a shot on WWE. But the thing is, you know, AEW is kind of off-Broadway of what wrestling is, and that's not a bad thing. Some people prefer that. I was, in the 90s, ECW was my promotion, and I will always have a little tribute behind me for ECW. ECW was this compared to WWE or WCW. But it was my preference. I enjoyed it more. So anybody that enjoys AEW more than WWE, absolutely, man. Enjoy. Have a great time. If you love the style, if you love the pace, if you love, you know, some of the extra violence, if you love a little bit of that tongue-in-cheek humor, a little bit of the sexiness, fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. It's a different style in WWE. But, you know, if you're going to look at just dollars and cents, you ask yourself, how come the best wrestling doesn't make the most money? You know, because maybe wrestling is not really as much about just athletically you do things that just have people like in awe of. Maybe people, you know, want to be entertained, not amazed, if that makes sense. You know, like, I don't need to sit there like that fucking schmuck when Undertaker lost his streak and just sit there and go with his eyes. You're like, yeah, that was a shock moment and everything. But I don't need to have that reaction when I'm watching wrestling on a weekly basis. I want to be entertained. I don't need to be amazed. You know, especially at the end of the day, it is scripted. It is scripted. So watching somebody almost kill themselves in a ring, doing a move that you know that 99 out of 100 times they'll do it perfectly, but that 100th time they're probably going to break their neck. I'm not going to turn around and say, well, he did it right 99 times out of 100. No, I don't need to see a move where I'm like, holy shit. You're like, I don't need that because, yeah, you escaped injury this time around, but you're playing Russian roulette with your body. I want to be entertained, not as much amazed. And, you know, that's how it is. But I don't criticize anybody that thinks AEW is their favorite. Trust me, in 1997 and 1998, when I used to talk about ECW more than anything else, because it was my favorite, we covered WWE, obviously, WCW and everything else, but when I used to tell people it was my favorite, some people would laugh at me. People laugh at me like, it's, because the stigma of ECW at the time was drunks, hardcore, not talented wrestlers. Even though you had your Eddie Guerreros and your Dean Malenkos and Shane Douglas and Chris Benoit, obviously turned out to be a fucking murderer. Two Cold Scorpios, Conan was there for a little while, Hoovy, Psychosis. You had great talented wrestlers there. Jerry Lynn, but at the time, people would just focus on ultra violence. Fucking violent garbage, hardcore garbage. It got a label about themselves, but it was obviously much more than that. And you look back, I mean, the Triple Threat is not a good example, but the Triple Threat started in 1994. 1994, 3 years before ECW went on pay-per-view. And the Triple Threat was not fucking hardcore wrestling, so to speak. There was great wrestling there. But it got the stigma, the label of being, something different. So, I don't have any issue with AEW. I really don't. But it's not everybody's cup of tea, It's just like ECW's old logo. I still have the shirt. It's not for everyone. ECW used to have a shirt. It's not for everyone. AEW, it's not for everyone. WWE, it's not for everyone. Obviously, it's for more because of look at the revenue coming in, but it's not for everyone. Everybody's different. Yuri Abalbul. Thank you very much, my friend, for your generosity. When do I think Vince McMahon will be inducted in the WWE Hall of Fame? Will it happen while he is still alive? I don't believe so. I don't think he'll be put in while he's alive. I personally think if there was ever a place, if there was ever an opportunity to put Vince McMahon in the WWE Hall of Fame, it would be at the WrestleMania in Saudi Arabia. It would be in Saudi Arabia because the Saudi Arabian audience has a disconnect toward as far as Vince McMahon's personal lives. It's a different country. It's just like when you look at Mexico, they are much more forgiving about Alberto El Patron than how we look at it in different countries. If Vince McMahon was ever going to go into the WWE Hall of Fame alive, Saudi Arabia would be the perfect place. I do believe he would be cheered almost anywhere it would be. The problem is those interviews, those media scrums, WrestleMania week, they would get just hammered with media about Vince going in. I think in Saudi Arabia, I don't know how many journalists are going to go to Saudi Arabia next year. That's going to be fucking interesting. How many of your journalists out there are going to go to Saudi Arabia? So if you're not going to see much media go out to Saudi Arabia, trust me, it'll be a lot more softballs. A lot more softballs. The climate there is much more forgiving. I truthfully believe that if WWE returns to Saudi Arabia for WrestleMania in the next 5 years and Vince is still alive, maybe he goes in. But I personally think he will go in when he's deceased. Because, believe it or not, the relationship with Vince and Linda has been strained for a lot longer than we realize. If anybody saw my history episode 2 weeks ago or heard it, you heard Dr. McMahon, Vince McMahon giving the commencement speech for a college in Connecticut. This was about, a little less than 10 years ago, I would say. And if you read the college book, the book that they gave everyone, the day of the commencement, there's a quote in there from Vince McMahon saying, "I always told my wife, Linda, there'll never be a dull moment." Something like that. And I look back and I'm like, oh yeah, you were right. And this was only about 10 years ago. That relationship has been weird for far too long. I don't think Linda, Stephanie would, I think it would be a little bit awkward to be present live for Vince McMahon accepting the Hall of Fame. I think it would be awkward for some of the wrestlers as well. I think some wrestlers not showing up at the Hall of Fame in protest for Vince would be controversial. I think if they do it when he's deceased, he's not on the stage. And you understand what I'm saying? So I think he goes in after he's deceased. My honest opinion. So, Todd Pelkey, thank you very much, my friend. Thank you for your generosity. I appreciate you as well. Definitely means a lot. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you, Todd. Rojo Bear, thoughts on Ronda Rousey's fight last night? I watched it. I watched a little bit. I mean, I'm not a big fan of MMA at all. Never was. I don't think I'll ever will be either. But I did watch a little of it. I was curious of the Netflix presentation. It was obviously flawed. Make no mistake about it. There was things about it that was just over the top, but you got to get used to that with Netflix. I learned very quickly when they had opening day with the Yankees versus the Giants. At least we didn't have Jey Uso fucking eating popcorn, in the crowd. Like, it was okay. As far as the fight itself, it went, 17 seconds? This is the best way I could describe it. I watched a lot of non-UFC fans today, a lot of wrestling fans also, that feel they were ripped off because the match only lasted 17 seconds. Welcome to the real world. I saw some goofs out there, and see, Tony, this is where you bite your tongue and you just let it go. I didn't even respond, but I wanted to say to them, when you go to your local prostitute and you drop a 50 and you want to get blown and you blow your load in 17 seconds, do you demand a refund? That's how I look at it. Real sports, real challenges are unpredictable. Something could go an hour. Something could go 10 minutes. And sometimes they could go 17 seconds. I grew up watching Mike Tyson. I just finished saying this a couple of weeks ago. Some of you will remember this. And I said, I remember sitting in my car the night that Mike Tyson lost to Buster Douglas. I remember watching fights on television that lasted seconds. And I used to joke with my friends. I'm like, I could only imagine somebody who paid fucking thousands to sit front row to watch a fight that lasted 30 seconds, 15 seconds. You go back and you watch those crowds, especially when Mike Tyson had a knockout in the first round. You pay attention to those crowds because everything is filmed. They're losing their shit. They are fucking going bonkers. There's no refund. You know who bitches about refunds? Bitches. The people out there that complain about $15 Big Macs when they're vegetarians. Bitches complain about refunds. That's not the real word. Sometimes things end very quickly. That's just the way it is. Anybody that was complaining yesterday is not truly an MMA fan. Because in the real world of MMA, somebody could get their ass knocked out or tapped out in 10 seconds. You don't sit there and you just feel the other person out. It's not like a Rocky movie where they're just like pacing themselves. You throw a punch, ooh. You pace another punch, ooh. And then you hold them, break. There's no foreplay. Gina Carano, from what I understand, has been out of MMA for over 15 years. And she might have looked good. She's a beautiful woman. Might have looked good, felt that she could hang. Unfortunately, Ronda Rousey put her in that armbar, and that was it. You think Gina Carano's like, could you lighten up a little bit? Come on, let's last the 30 seconds more. Let me do a Steve Austin, and I'll just like pass out from the pain. No, this is the real world. I'm actually glad that it lasted as quickly as it did, because it felt completely real. If she wouldn't have tapped out right away, and this felt more like Steve Austin WrestleMania 13 Bret Hart, where Gina Carano, like people would have fucking got angry. For dramatic purposes. No, the match ended the way it did, and people complaining about it don't know what the fuck they're talking about. That's my honest take on the fight. So, Scorpio, 1117, has an unpopular opinion. He thinks CM Punk should retire. He does not elevate talent. His wrestling ability is overrated, and he became such a corporate man. I wouldn't have him retire because he's a corporate man. The world we live in with wrestling is a lot different than what it is before. Because the two biggest companies, one, everything is about money, and the other, nothing is about money. You remember when CM Punk cut that interview? Tony Khan's not there to make money. It's about happiness. It's about, living a dream. CM Punk turned into a corporate guy. But that's what happens sometimes when you get older. When you live in a world that's extremely expensive, when you're married. I can't fault him for being a corporate guy. At least he doesn't lie about it. He came in to make money. Period. Make money. Not because that, he wants to save professional wrestling. Look at Roman Reigns. He gave everybody a 2-year head start. Now I'm coming back to save WWE. And everything he's doing is within family. Are you really saving WWE? No, he's not. The ratings are right back to what they were before Roman Reigns was around. As far as elevating talent, when you are one of few that are as over as CM Punk is, that can wrestle as good as CM Punk, that is worthy of being in a main event, the only way you elevate talent is by having great matches. He should not be losing repeatedly to others. So you can elevate talent by winning. He had the match with Braun Breaker. Braun Breaker came this close, but CM Punk pulled it out. Braun Breaker gets a little elevated because of that. CM Punk has had some pretty damn good matches, but you got to also understand that a lot of paying fans are not there to see Braun Breaker take on Shiloh Hill. All right. Yeah, maybe once in a blue moon is a nice little surprise for NXT fans or something like that. But, he is there. He is a main event talent. So the opponents that he has, look, in AEW, I loved when he took on Hobbs. I loved when he took on Darby and others. I enjoyed seeing CM Punk, mingling with the talent that was less experienced than him. But in WWE, it's a different animal. It's a different company. It's a different environment. So I don't think he should retire yet. But I do believe that, barring injury to someone else, I don't know if he gets the world championship ever again. But right now, he's not there to be Charlotte Flair. I know I rhymed. He's not there to be Charlotte Flair. Charlotte Flair has helped elevate some other talent. Becky Lynch has elevated some young talent, and she won most of the time. What she tried to do for some of the younger talent. And NXT, Tiffany Stratton and Indy Hartwell and others. Becky Lynch, say what you want about her, she has done more to help elevate younger talent. Maybe Bayley is a close second, but CM Punk is not there to be Flair. Not yet. So that's why I don't think he should retire. I think there'll be a point where CM Punk will start accumulating some losses, and there'll probably be a shocking one here and there, but I don't think it's the right time. Scorpio says Mason Rook is the next King Kong Bundy. They should shave his head. That actually is not a bad idea, man. I think if he shaved his head, I could see it. But you know what? No one wanted to see King Kong Bundy do moonsaults, although Bam Bam Bigelow. I honestly think Mason Root could be more of a Bam Bam Bigelow than anything else, the way he works. Because Bam Bam used to do those fucking, like those, with tumbleweeds or whatever it is. Not somersaults. You know what I'm talking about. Mason Rook is very interesting cat, man. Never was on my radar because I never thought WWE would ever bring in someone like. By the way, tomorrow, I have a good one for tomorrow. I don't know if you all seen it, but one of the talent scouts for WWE that scouts international talent that I think is the one responsible for getting Mason Rook on the WWE radar, he put out a video telling everyone out there how you can send your footage, your content to WWE. And he said explicitly what they're looking for, what he wants, what you need to do. And I was very impressed by it. And he did 5 videos and I spliced them together into one nice little video package. I'm going to share it tomorrow. It's a really, really good video because some of you out there overseas, outside the U.S., Canada, Mexico, you probably have some local talent that you think WWE should take a look at. And if you do, this video you definitely want to tune into. Cannonball, cartwheels. No, you're right. Kishino Kevin, cartwheels. That's what it was. When Bama used to do it. Remember the video game? And I don't remember which video game it was. Remember the video game that you hit the button a certain way, Bam Bam would do a cartwheel? I would do cartwheels nonstop in the match that I would have thought he would have lost just from dizziness. I would just hit the cartwheel. I hit a move and do a cartwheel over and over again. I don't remember who I used to play against with my friends. They used to get pissed off at me. I used to play as Bam Bam and fucking do cartwheels nonstop. People would get so angry at it. So, yes, I'm going to show that video tomorrow. But thank you for that, Scorpio. Jay Carlos. What's up, Carlos? He doesn't know how to explain it, but WWE used to have some magic with Vince, and he thinks it's lost after the sale. Do I agree? The magic is wrestling in the blood. Vince McMahon, let me put it like this. We used to get angry. And trust me, old episodes of DTKC, Minority Report, which you can all get now on your local audio platforms, little plug there. We put up 2,000 old episodes up recently. Not all at the same time, but we worked very hard to get that back online. You will find multiple episodes in the past. So we used to get angry when Vince McMahon would be on TV and he would say, I know what the WWE Universe wants more than they know it. Like the whole McMahon family. I remember one time they showed up in the ring, and this was not that long ago. In fact, I covered on the history show, you had Vince, Stephanie, Shane, Triple H, Vince, Stephanie, Shane, and Triple H in the ring. And they were all, we're going to listen to the WWE. We're going to do what you want. We're listening. You guys may remember that. I think they were on Raw. And they were all in the ring at the same time. And I remember that night we were covering it. We were like, this is the same shit that Vince does all the time. At the end of the day, he always felt he knew more what we wanted than we realized. And in hindsight, I think he was right more than we realize. Vince had wrestling in his blood. Yes, he always looked at it as sports entertainment, but he knew the core wants of a wrestling fan. That's why it was so much spectacle in cinema. That's why it was so much about that, even with the ridiculous storylines, even the bad storylines. There was always a lot of thought put into it. I remember when Vince was doing the disgusting stuff when his wife was in a fucking wheelchair and he's making out with WWE divas. And I remember a lot of heat. And I honestly think it was Vince. It was either Vince or somebody very high up in the WWE at the time said, don't worry. In the end, Mr. McMahon will get his. Somebody said, it might even have been Linda. I don't know who said it at the time, but I remember a McMahon, somebody saying, in the end, Mr. McMahon will get his. Like, he'll get screwed in the end. And that was the payoff, even though I think there was a real personal sexual arousal with that amongst Vince and Linda. I think Linda used to get into that as well. I think Linda found it kinky. I really do. I've always said that for years. But the thing is, at the core, Vince was a wrestling guy. And he put the entertainment aspect in it, but he was a wrestling guy. And with him out of there now, the people who bought it are not wrestling guys. They're not stupid. They have wrestling people involved with it because that's what they do. It's kind of like if I bought a fucking fish restaurant. If I bought a famous fish restaurant, we have a place in Queens, New York called London Lenny's, famous fish restaurant. I don't know nothing about fish. The closest I get to fish is, well, we're not going to go there. Like, I don't know nothing about fish. So if I'm going to keep running it as a fish restaurant, I'm going to keep obviously the cooks that know how to cook the fish, serve the fish, present the fish, know what, is good on the menu, what popular it's popular. I might see something on the menu and be like, I don't know, it doesn't look appetizing. Maybe you should add this to it. All right, boss, you're the boss, do what you want. Ari, Mark, but in the end, I'm going to have fish people involved because they know how to fucking handle the fish. But the people who own it, like me, don't know shit about fish. So I think that's what's changed. You have the people who are signing the checks and that matter in WWE is TKO. That's what it is. And they're not wrestling people. They're more UFC people than anything else. And, they see their little spin on something and they think this will get more attention. And look at it like this. I couldn't stand the Pat McAfee stuff. I couldn't stand the Travis Scott stuff. I couldn't stand a lot of celebrity stuff. But when you see that a lot of the attention towards a premium live event or an event itself is getting a lot of negativity or not getting the eyes that it should, you're just inviting Mark Shapiro, Ariel Emanuel to turn around and say, you know what? Let's bring a celebrity in. Let's bring in McAfee. Let's bring in others. And who's at fault for that? Triple H. Who's at fault for that? WWE Creative. Who's at fault for that? The people who are running it on an everyday basis. If they can't get a shitload of eyes amongst the wrestling audience to get into a product, and the higher ups are looking and are like, how come this is still got 5,000 seats available? You're just asking for fucking Mark Shapiro to say, you know what? Let's bring in iShow Schmuck. Let's bring in Pat McAfee. I shouldn't even say that about iShow Speed. I kind of like him now. You're just inviting them to put their spin on it. When the Bloodline was at its peak, when you had all that amazing stuff going on, even towards WrestleMania 40, when TKO first started getting involved, you didn't see much on the celebrity side of it. You had Rock, but you didn't have much of the celebrity side because things were on such a momentum. There was no need to. But now when you see some holes and you see some complaining, you see some numbers going down, then they're not going to try to figure out why is the hole there. They're going to try to find a way to patch it really quickly. And the patches were McAfee. The patches were Jelly Roll. The patches were, that's what they were doing. So blame it on creative. Because if creative was doing a better job, there'd be no need for Speed. It's kind of like the reverse Top Gun. There'd be no need for Speed. All right. Let's start bringing this home. I'll tell you this much. The fact that my phone has not gone off is a good thing, man. I'm worried about my mom, man. I'm worried about my mom. Can't believe Tuesday I got to fucking bury my father-in-law. Tuesday's the funeral, Wednesday's the burial. But I feel so bad for, his family, my wife. It's a father. You lose your father. And we watched him decline in a matter of 2 weeks in hospice at home, man. It's been... me, I try to, got to go forward. Got to keep going. Can't get bogged down. It can drive you nuts, but, just a lot to take in all at once. I mean, literally in a month, my friend decides to OD. My brother's mother-in-law dies from a brain aneurysm. My father-in-law passes away. My mother has heart valve replacement surgery, and now she's in the hospital right now dealing with a brain issue. Shit. Damn. All right. Got a Brock Lesnar question. Bobby Means, do I think Brock Lesnar will go into the WWE Hall of Fame? Absolutely. Absolutely. And Saudi Arabia would probably be the perfect place to do it, because Brock is not a very emotional guy. Brock, for the Crown Prince, right now that Crown Prince is probably pissed off. This motherfucker didn't retire in Saudi Arabia. He didn't retire in my country. He was our biggest request next to Undertaker. He could have retired in our country. I think he'll go in the WWE Hall of Fame. I think he'll go in next year. I think it's probably the wise thing to do. I think John Cena, could end up being with him. What would be funny? Especially when we're getting towards the end of this Saudi Arabia deal. It would not, I'm telling you, I'm going to say something now. I hope you guys remember 7-8 months from now. I have a weird feeling that the Hall of Fame class of 2027 might arguably the greatest WWE Hall of Fame class in recent memory. I think they may end up loading this shit to make Saudi Arabia. Remember, Saudi Arabia, the greatest Royal Rumble ever, the greatest, the best in the world. It's all, that's what it is. It's about ego. When WWE first went to Saudi Arabia, you can't just have regular events like everything else. No, these whack jobs, it's got to be like, we're not just going to do the Royal Rumble. We're going to have the greatest Royal Rumble. We're not going to just have a tournament to determine who wins this ugly trophy. We're going to do best in the world. Like, everything's got to be over the top. That's why I'm worried if WWE gets sold to Saudi Arabia. Because everything, you'll have elephants bringing people to the ring. You'll have all this nonsense that's going to be added to it for spectacle. Riyadh season, forget it. Fucking everything it's no. I could see WWE bending over backwards. So we gave you the greatest Royal Rumble. We gave you the greatest of this. We brought the Royal Rumble. We brought WrestleMania. We brought this. We brought the best in the world. How's about the greatest Hall of Fame? The greatest Hall of Fame, etc. Oh, my God. If Randy Orton is going to... Randy, give me another $10 million. Let's put the whole fucking OVW class in the fucking Hall of Fame. Shelton! You might see next year be the biggest powerful class ever. I could say, just imagine it. It kind of makes sense. Vince, Cena, Lesnar, they all fucking hang out together. They all love each other. Oh my God, this could be the Vince McMahon Hall of Fame ceremony next year. The whole class could be surrounded by Vince guys. So, shout out to Richard. Thank you very much for the gift, my friend. I appreciate that. Much love to you. 316 MMA, why are they booking Liv Morgan like crap right now? Let me finish Bobby Means. Now I'll answer that. Would Brock accept it considering his involvement in Janelle Grant lawsuit? It's funny you say that. This coming week is the 1-year anniversary that Janelle Grant dismissed the lawsuit against John Laurinaitis. Think about this for a minute. And I'm not trying to be explicit here. John Laurinaitis banged Janelle Grant. Brock Lesnar did not. John Laurinaitis talked about having breakfast. And breakfast was not cake and coffee, was not tea and crumpets, was not eggs and bacon, was not hash browns and fucking pancakes. No, it was penis and vagina. That was breakfast. She dismissed him from the lawsuit because he was going to help her case. We're now 1 year later. Tell me what Johnny Ace has done to help the Janelle Grant. You know what I think happened? I think Janelle Grant's legal team was probably be like, look, Johnny Ace could only fuck things up. So let's just drop it and make it seem like a threat. It's kind of like that scene in Goodfellas. Anybody remember? Not Goodfellas, The Godfather. Remember the scene in The Godfather when Al Pacino was on trial and they brought that guy in there and he was going to testify against Al Pacino. And then, the guy was about to testify and all of a sudden they brought in, I guess was supposed to be his brother from Italy. And he sat in the crowd and FBI is about to question. He sees his brother in the audience. And he's like, what happened with fucking, Corleone? Hey, Corleone, I don't remember the name. You remember that? I think that's what happened with Johnny Ace. I think they realized, like, look, let's bring in his fucking brother and sit it. I don't know nothing about this. You guys remember that scene. I don't remember the guy's name in the movie, but a lot of you know who I'm talking about. I don't remember. Johnny Ace did nothing. He did nothing to help her case, but she dropped him from the lawsuit. Why? Why? Did he send her a Christmas card? I'm sorry, Janelle. I really cared about you. I lost my wife, my marriage because of you. I cared about you. I mean, is that what happened? There was no cease and desist. So the reason why I say that is, why is Brock Lesnar all over this lawsuit when he did nothing with her? He was only guilty of being a bad husband, bad father. He's all over this lawsuit to just make Janelle Grant look more like a victim. That's it. So no, I think if Brock Lesnar goes in the Hall of Fame, all this Janelle Grant stuff will be ignored. Will be ignored because at the end of the day, tell me what crime that Brock Lesnar committed. Tell me why he is all over this lawsuit and Johnny Ace is no more. Johnny Ace had sex with this woman multiple times. Don't give me, I did it under duress. I did it under duress. Bullshit. Bullshit. Nobody buys that. You look at Johnny Ace's history as a talent scout in WWE when he used to look through modeling magazines. Hey, Joy Giovanni. Oh, yeah, let's hire her. Oh, yeah, let's hire her. Yeah. John Laurinaitis has been a pig for decades. This wasn't just, he's a really nice guy who just kind of fell off the road because of Vince McMahon. He just got clouded with bad. No, this guy was always a pig. So when you have Johnny Ace off this lawsuit, but Brock Lesnar is still mentioned, WWE is not concerned about that. That's how I look at it. So, all right, as far as Liv Morgan, thank you again, Richard, for your generosity, my friend. Thank you for that. As far as Liv Morgan, the thing is, we just came off of WrestleMania. There's a cool down period. Stephanie Vicaire is off TV because they want to get a little attention off of that feud. That feud got really fucking intense. It led to hematomas. It led to some wild brawling and trash talking. You don't simply just forget about that. So you kind of had to pull somebody off of television, and that was Stephanie Vicaire, to force, it's kind of like Gunther losing to Jey Uso at WrestleMania, the ridiculous tap. How do you, and we complained at that time, how do you go from there? And we thought Gunther's got to fucking lose it and just, start attacking. No, we'll just take Gunther off television. We'll take him off television for a couple of months because that'll force the distance between Jey Uso and Gunther. What happened? Gunther returned, and instead of going after Jey Uso, he went after Michael Cole and Pat McAfee. Jey Uso ended up going after Logan Paul, or should I say the reverse. So they kind of did with Stephanie Vicaire and Liv Morgan what they did with Gunther and Jey Uso. Liv Morgan is a cool down period. She won the championship. They're trying to figure out where to go from here. Should it be Sol Ruka? Should it be this person? Should it be this person? So right now they're testing the water a little bit. Some people think Roxanne Perez may be sooner than later with Liv Morgan. I don't think they're doing a bad job of Liv Morgan. I think there was just this cool down period, and then the ball will start rolling again. And you got to also remember, this is about, we're going to Italy. They're going to Paris. They're going to a few outside countries. Think about this. You got Clash of the Champions. No titles on the line. It's going to be Liv Morgan versus the SmackDown Women's Champion. So there's a feud that's coming up with no titles on the line. It's about bragging rights. So I think they don't want to get too deep. And who knows? Stephanie Vicaire could return within a week or two. And maybe they do continue that feud a little bit more. It's possible. But I think, you have to have a cool down period after WrestleMania. That's what I think it is more than anything. So, but I appreciate that. And I appreciate Richard, man. Thank you very much, man. You're very, very generous. You didn't have to do that, but I thank you. Extremely generous what you did. Thank you for that. I appreciate you, man. I want to thank all of you for hanging out tonight a little bit. I mean, we'll stick around like another 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, but today was really fucked up. Let me put it this way. If you see me with a phone next to me, that means something is up. And if my phone goes off while we are live and I have to take the call, that means something is really up. Because anyone else, I could just call them back after the show is over. It's just, I don't recall. I mean, it's got to be a good 10, 15 years since, other than a month ago, that I was interrupted with the phone while I'm doing the show. I mean, I kind of wish that I got the phone call 5 minutes earlier, because I would have just wrote in the comments section, guys, we're going to start 10 minutes late. I got a very important phone call. But I had already hit start, and I never had that happen before while the intro is playing. What do? I was afraid if I stopped the show, then that's it. I can't start it again. So I kind of had to open up the way I did, but it's a learning lesson. But hopefully I don't have to get another phone call like that, because that's the last thing that I wanted to see. It's been rough, man. It's been rough, but, and if you notice, I kept it off social media. I didn't write anything. I didn't write anything about my father-in-law. I didn't write anything about my friend, and I didn't write anything about... I wrote something about my mom on Mother's Day, obviously, because it's a very emotional day, Mother's Day and everything. But, I just, it's kind of rough right now. But again, talking wrestling, having some convo definitely helps me. It's an escape for me, man. It's an escape. So, and I can't tell you how many times over the years a lot of you have told me that the shows are an escape for you. That's what it's about. It's an escape, from a lot of the bullshit that we deal with. So hopefully I have good news. Hopefully I have good news by tomorrow. I have a feeling that, what did I say? The POCD, that's what it is. Post-operative cognitive disorder. The anesthesia is giving my mother complications, and hopefully it's nothing more than that, because if they come back with the A word, man, our family's just going to lose it. Trust me, we just went through tragedy with that. So I don't think we're going to hear that. I think we're going to hear what I brought up. So fingers crossed. Tristan, and thank you again, Richard. Much love for you. I appreciate that. Tristan would like to know, how funny did I think the Big Boss Man dragging Big Show's casket around the singer was? Well, just experiencing death, I wouldn't say it was funny. I think if anybody dragged around one of my family's caskets, I think they probably would end up joining that person in the casket. It was intended to be funny. To see Big Show jump on the casket and like surfing with it was a funny segment. It was something that you didn't expect to see. We really have never seen something afterwards. It was just bizarre, but it was funny bizarre, and that's what it was intended to be. Douche! Rest in peace and shout out to Barry Blaustein, who also passed away this week. Beyond the Mat is the best wrestling documentary of all time. You want to know something, douche? I said this on Wednesday Night Dynamite. I watched more than a couple of young wrestling fans who think Beyond the Mat sucked, who think Beyond the Mat was a mess, who think that Beyond the Mat was, kind of all over the place. And I totally understand why they said that. For me, growing up, the two greatest documentaries that I ever saw in wrestling is Beyond the Mat and Wrestling with Shadows. The reason why wrestling fans of today do not look back on Barry Blaustein's Beyond the Mat with fondness, not just the chair shots. I have said this since the late 90s. I never watched that segment of The Rock chair bashing Mick Foley. I never watched that segment again. When I watched that in the movies, hearing the song Stand By Me and seeing not Noel, I can't remember his wife's name, but his wife and his kids, and every chair shot you see them screaming and cringing and crying. I was like, boy, that's too deep for me, man. I just never watched that segment ever again. I did watch right after. Vince is like, I really appreciate. Yeah, I mean, the Vince stuff was fun. Don't ever do that again. But I just think the reason why wrestling fans of today say that is because they've been spoiled for the last 30 years with wrestling documentaries and behind the scenes and the Monday Night Wars and now WWE Unreal and so much behind the scenes content that we've been given. In the 90s, we didn't see any of that. We got hints of it in magazines. We got hints of it on hotlines. Meltzer would give some inside dirt for sure, but we didn't ever get a chance to see that. And when we saw it with Beyond the Mat and got a little bit more behind the scenes, some of it very disturbing, some of it very inspiring. Then you got Wrestling with Shadows. At that time, it was something unheard of. It was just unique, new. We knew what wrestling was, but you never saw it the way that it was presented like that. Not in a 90-minute plus level. But over the last 30 years, wrestling fans have been spoiled with loads of Beyond the Mats. So they're kind of numb to what it was. But in the 90s, it was epic, man. It was epic. I have watched it countless times over the years. I just skip over the Mick Foley part. So, Guardian says, fun fact, DT, I was fortunate enough to work with three legends, Jake Foley and Terry Funk. That's awesome, man, because they're three of my favorites. Terry Funk is my favorite of all time. Mick Foley is in my top 10. Jake the Snake Roberts, I don't know if I would put him in my top 10, but man, do I wish that he was more involved on the creative side. I would have loved to see kind of like his Bray Wyatt-ish, back doing creative in the 90s and the 2000s. Jake is someone that I wish had a little bit more of a clear head years earlier, because I think he would have just contributed, not necessarily specific storylines, but character development. I think that's where Jake would have really excelled, character development. He was definitely excellent. But that's awesome, man. That's awesome. Be able to work, I've had the pleasure of meeting them all. I did an interview with Jake Roberts. It's one of the episodes I still have to put online for the Mass Maniac show. I still have it. Myself, Mass Maniac, and Jake Roberts. I still have it. But getting the opportunity, I've told the Mick Foley stories over the years. You'll never get out of my mind, and I even mentioned this on Patreon Thursday. I'll never get out of my mind watching him on Sunrise Highway with his wife and two kids. This was around 2003 or 4 when he had knee surgery, I think it was. And he's on crutches, walking. And if anybody, you just go to Google Maps, type in Sunrise Highway like Lindenhurst or something. I mean, walking like a quarter of a mile on crutches with a Mike Piazza jersey on. And he was coming to a charity wrestling event that I was involved in. And the reason why he had to walk a quarter of a mile on crutches is because there was no place to park. He had to park like in a parking lot of a car dealership and walk down Sunrise Side. For some reason, nobody called him up, or he didn't call anybody up, says, could you pick me up? I'm a quarter of a mile away. I have no way to... He walked on crutches. This was while he was still working with WWE, but he was off TV, he had the surgery, and he went there anyway and signed autographs and took pictures. And, I've seen up close, I don't agree with a lot of his political views, but, if we had $1 every time Mick Foley did something for someone where cameras were not around, we'd be a millionaire. I've always heard that. There's some people out there that do wonderful deeds, and there always has to be a camera around. And to me, that's disgusting to an extent. For Mick Foley, it's the opposite. He does a lot with no cameras around. All right. Let's start bringing this home. Roderick Howard, would I belt Oba with the world title by SummerSlam? Do I think it would be too soon? And could fans turn on Oba for being too dominant? I don't think fans will turn on Oba anytime soon, because Oba, they're reacting to what Oba's doing, and Oba is doing what they want. They're not just chanting because they want to be interactive. They are digging what they're getting. It's gonna have to. They're gonna have to pull back a little bit with the quality of opponents, because Oba cannot just squash everybody. It's kind of like when Goldberg started fighting people like Raven and Steve Regal and others in WCW. Like, Oba is much farther in development, but he's going to have 10-minute matches. You can't just simply have 2-minute squashes every time. I do believe putting the world title on him before or at SummerSlam is way too soon. I think his future is the Intercontinental Championship. I believe he will be Intercontinental Champion going into Clash of Champions. I think that's where they're going to go with this. I do not see him as a world champion in 2026. Maybe for next year, maybe for WrestleMania. I would love to see Roman Reigns versus Oba Femi. I think that is a bigger match than people think, but I don't know if it's going to happen. So, Mercedes Moné, not JPEG. I think she's going to return in California when AEW goes back to California. I think that is where she could make her return. I think isn't the Owen Hart final happening at Forbidden Door? So I think Forbidden Door is in California. I think that's where she could return. Sure, she could return in New York. A lot of people think that she's going to return. The interesting thing is, I don't know if she's going to be a heel again. It'd be pretty interesting to see the reaction. It might even be a Jericho situation where the fans will warm up to her. The playing field of AEW for the women's side has changed a little bit. So maybe having her as a babyface would give her a little bit more of a variety of opponents. So she could show up in New York for Double or Nothing, or I think it might be more appropriate for Forbidden Door in California. So Britt Baker, I don't know. Britt Baker, I really don't know. I personally think if you bring her back to TV and do nothing with her, it's worse. I think she may quietly just disappear. If she does return, then I expect plans for her. I just don't know if that'll be the case. With the tag team division now, you would think she would have returned already. Maybe Jamie Hayter doesn't want to team up with her again. I don't know. I do know, and I know this is going to sound awful, but I have to mention it. We know what's going on with Rebel, and she doesn't have much time left. And I honestly feel that if her time comes, and AEW will absolutely pay tribute, and you have to have Britt Baker on television. I hate to say it, but that might be when you see her on TV again. Sorry for bringing that up, but I think a lot of you would agree with me on that. So, all right. Yeah, people are split about Oba Femi. People are split. Yeah, I keep calling it Clash of Champions. I'm sorry, douche. Night of Champions. Night of Champions with WWE. I just force a habit. Night of Champions. They're going to Night of Champions. I kept saying Clash of Champions. All right. Clash of Champions was something in '89. Once we hit NWO, why bother? Yeah, I agree. It sucks that AEW could have done more with those Saturday night specials. They didn't, with the Battle of the Belts and everything. I think that could have been kind of like a flashback to Clash of Champions, but it very quickly was nothing. I mean, you see what's going on now with that. So, thank you, Richard, again, man. Shout out to you. He shouts out the family. Much love. I appreciate it. So, yeah, Douche agrees about Battle of the Belts also. That should have been much bigger with AEW. They have proven that, you put on something strong enough, you'll get a decent rating out of it. They've done some Collision episodes on a Saturday and got a decent number, and it didn't need an NBA lead-in. They just really, they're not committed to those specials anymore. And that says a lot. Say what you want, but Warner Brothers Discovery stopped a Friday show, and they stopped those specials. If you're happy with that product, why do you stop it? So, and they never brought Ring of Honor to television. That says a lot to me, that the only way Ring of Honor gets to TBS and TNT is if you mingle them on Collision and Dynamite. I mean, that's telling that even Ring of Honor can't get something. But then again, if Ring of Honor did find TV, what do you do with the My AEW stuff other than pay-per-view? Like, what do you do? You know what's interesting? We were talking about Trilla TV last week. I think it's the beginning and the end of Trilla TV. This coming week is the 1-year anniversary that Trilla TV started to pull back on AEW pay-per-views. I think, I didn't do all the research yet, but if I'm wrong, I definitely won't mention it next week, but I'm pretty sure that it was a year ago this week coming that we found out that Trilla TV was not going to air AEW pay-per-views in the United States, that it was only available in like some countries. And people were pissed off. People were very pissed off, like, why is this not available on Triller? Now things are starting to come together and you realize how long this has been a problem. So, all right. Yeah, I mean, I was surprised, Ultra, how many people never heard of that phrase, robbing Peter to pay Paul. Like, that is such an old school reference. You literally, you're taking money that you got from this person, and you, instead of, like money you made for this person, and instead of giving that person, you're taking the money and you're giving it to someone else that you owe money to. And then that person starts bitching, hey, why is our money late? And then Trilla TV, it's almost like, well, we got House of Glory revenue coming up. Let's take that House of Glory revenue and give it to AEW. And then House of Glory starts asking, hey, where's our money? And then you're like, oh, well, we got this. I'm just using examples. You're literally robbing Peter because you owe Paul. You pay Paul, and now Peter needs money. So then you end up robbing Paul to pay Peter. That's what Trilla TV is doing. And once you do that, that's the beginning of the end. Whether you like it or not, that's the beginning of the end. Unfortunately, a lot of these economic sites, they could Google and they could sound like a wiki thing, or you could use AI, but, if they don't know the street smart, they don't know what that means to rob Peter to pay Paul. That is that is like a street term. Like, how are you going to describe Trilla TV? Well, they were all this, and they were weeks late, and there was demands forever. No, Trilla TV, when they started running out of money, they started losing opportunities, started losing revenue. Their expenses were too high. They were paying people too much money. And then they started falling behind. And then people that they owed money to, they didn't have the money. They couldn't get credit. They couldn't get loans. They didn't even file their financials with the stock market. Look at the stock story about Triller TV. They didn't do their financials on time because they didn't want to let any of their customers know that they're in fucking trouble. So what ends up happening? AEW's waiting for money and it's months late. And like, hey, we need our money. So what do? They take the revenue from other places and they give it to AEW, and then those other people are owed money. What's going on with that? Oh, we'll take the AEW Double or Nothing pay-per-view revenue, and we'll pay them off, and we'll give AEW 2 weeks later. It's a game until you can't keep up anymore. That's what happened with Triller TV. Robbing Peter to pay Paul. Yeah, you know what, douche? That is an awesome example. Cast Media. If anybody knows about the Jim Cornette stuff, Cast Media, that is a great example of it. Cast Media was getting the ad revenue, and they were, taking care of other things and not paying people on time. And then ultimately they would pay people and think that they're up to date. And then next thing you know, they're 10 times farther behind. And that's it. When you start having to do that, it's over. Especially when AEW is 40% of their revenue. AEW is 40% of Triller TV's revenue. AEW pulls out. Where do you get that revenue from? If Triller TV had a bunch of sexy women and they start flashing their tits and start doing like all these subscription things and maybe going OnlyFans, hey, you want a thriller for Triller? You might be able to get some ads side revenue. But you look at all these neckbeards involved with Triller, it's like, oh, God, I think he smells is the way he looks. You look at them, they're not like a sight for good eyes. Even Jazzwares. AEW is finished with Jazzwares. And you start looking at the people who are involved in it. Like, I looked at it, I was like, I literally was like doing a little research. I watched the guy's podcast announcing it, and I started looking at the staff that were involved with Jazzwares, and I click on the link. I was like, I wonder why they're good at figures. I don't know if they're good at anything else. You got to be good at something. So, I don't wish nothing bad on Triller. I wish nothing bad on Jazzwares. I wish nothing bad on any of them. But, when things are good, nobody complains, nobody cares, nobody be bothered. But when things start getting bad, and you start covering shit up and you start, because you got friends in media and you have them downplaying things, that's fucked up. A year ago, look at some of the news coverage of Triller TV and the AEW stuff. And now a year later, you look at some people like, wow, that's fucked up. They were trying to downplay this, pulling all their, I can imagine Triller pulling all their favors in the media, like, look, please, we can't let this leak out. We can't keep hemorrhaging money. We can't, I kind of feel bad for them, but still, that is dishonest. And I can only imagine how many other wrestling promotions out there that are this big, that Triller TV is their only exposure. If I have a streaming service in wrestling, or if anybody out there is a publicly traded company, if all of you, I start investing in them, because someone's going to have to pick up what Triller TV is losing. For AEW, they're going to do their own thing. But for others, it's going to be really interesting to see who they attach to. So, S21 Ultra, I don't really have like an OG Don Tony story. There was one that we talked about on Thursday. I can't remember what it was. It was really an awesome story too, and I can't remember. Can't remember right now. I promise you I'll give you one next week. Somebody brought up something on Thursday, and I was like, holy shit, and it triggered a story. I don't have a book of stuff that I write down and remember. It's just something happens, and it just sparks a memory. So I can't remember what the story was Thursday. Thursday feels like a month ago, and it was crazy because of, what's been going on. So my favorite shirt As far as wrestling-wise, my favorite shirt of all time is probably Roddy Piper's Hot Rod. That's probably my favorite wrestling shirt. I wouldn't, or you know what? I still have it. I sold most of my wrestling shirts. The ones that had sweat stains I threw out. I still have all my old ECW shirts. I have all my old XPW shirts. I have Terry Funk shirts that were never sold to the public. I have some shirts that I keep for different reasons. I got rid of all my NWO shirts except for one. 6. Sean Waltman. The 6 jersey, the 6 shirt with the pool ball, that was one of my favorite shirts too. I actually wore that shirt about 2 years ago. I don't remember where, but I remember a few people like, oh, that's an awesome shirt. But my favorite shirt of all time is probably Roddy Piper. Roddy Piper. The Backlund Snooker story. The only Backlund Snooker story that I remember was their feud in 1982. They had an awesome feud in 1982. And it was very strange at the time because Jimmy Snuka was getting cheered. Jimmy Snuka was getting cheered. I was a huge Snuka fan. I was a fan of Backlund too. But when Backlund fought Snuka at the Garden, I think this was Pro Wrestling Illustrated's photo of the year. If you Google it, you'll find it. The 1982 photo of the year is Jimmy Snuka standing on top of the steel cage in Madison Square Garden, and it's a black and white photo. It's a black and white photo. It was the photo of the year. And you see him on the cage like this. I think he was doing the I Love You sign too. And he jumped off and Backlund moved. And he moved. And Snuka missed and Backlund got the win. But that pose when he was on top of the cage, everybody thinks Snuka and Morocco would be the photo of the year. It was a year earlier, Snuka and Backlund. That was awesome. That was tremendous. Snuka and Roddy Piper is one of my favorite feuds of all time. One of my favorite matches that is never watched by anyone. If you ever want to watch one, it's the Fijian strap match. The finish is awful. The finish is awful. Snuka goes over the top rope and has trouble doing it. He stumbles and bumbles and ends up getting counted out of the ring. The finish is awful, but everything else about it is awesome. And I think that match was on bloopers, bleepers, and body slams or something like that. The first ever wrestling video I ever purchased. See, you got an OG Don Tony story after all. But first ever video I ever purchased, VHS tape, was bloopers, bleepers, and body slams, I think it was. The Samoans were on the cover. But there was the Fijian strap match between Snuka and Roddy Piper. All you got to do is just look at their facial reactions before the match starts. You almost laugh. The anger on Snuka's face, the anger on Piper's face, and they keep flashing the camera back and forth, and it gets to a point where you start laughing, but it's intense. And then Roddy Piper just snaps. He just starts screaming and charges Snuka, and it's a brawl. It's an awesome, awesome match until the end. The final few seconds, you'll be like, oh, God. It's kind of like Leon Slater versus Javon Evans in TNA. We thought it was match of the year, and then fucking Dark State shows up and ruins it. That legitimately should have been match of the year, and Dark State shows up and just ruins the whole night. That finish was probably the worst booked finish of 2025. That should have been match of the year. I don't know why they had, I know why they didn't want to have a clear-cut winner, but still, they had Dark State interfere, and it was like, oh my God, that was the biggest disappointment, man. Biggest disappointment, so. All right. One last thing. From Roderick, what do I think of the Patterson Slaughter Alley fight? I think that happened last week. The anniversary was with it. What I'll always remember from that match, and I say this every time, and it's on the History Show too, Slaughter bled like a pig. he bled like a pig. I mean, it was just, the match itself is iconic. Even WWE celebrates the anniversary of it. That's how important that match was. But what I will always remember from that match is Pat Patterson wearing a white I Love New York t-shirt that was 3 sizes too small. I mean, this is an XL, all right? And just imagine me wearing a white t-shirt right now, and I fit in an XL, and I put on a small. I mean, you look at that shirt. I mean, I'm not even saying this to be controversial, but, you know, I think back to like the 70s with the Village People and wearing like tight shirts, tight leather pants, you know, and if we're being honest, the gay community. And like, I was just like looking at it and I was like, maybe that's like an in thing to wear, you know, like amongst him and the community. I was like, why would you wear a t-shirt that is 3 sizes too small? But again, I don't know why, but back then, if you look, you see extremely tight shirts and extremely tight pants. And you got to keep in mind, I'm 10 years old. I didn't see that live. I saw it about 4 or 5 years later. But by then, we already knew Pat Patterson's sexuality. I don't know how we knew at the time, but we knew. We knew. Especially when Mel Phillips got busted in 85 or 86. But the thing is, like, you know, we just, like, was that the style? I don't know why, because those shirts were available everywhere. He just wore a shirt 3 sizes too small. It was just, but the match is iconic. And I met Pat Patterson at least a half a dozen times way back when. And I will honestly say, very, very nice man. Very nice man. We used to laugh at the way he used to talk a little bit, but very nice man. I mean, don't get me wrong. I never had conversations with him. You know, I'd be at like a wrestling event and, you know, introduces to people and like, you know, nice to meet you. You know, it's like, yeah, it's all it was. But, you know, it was very cordial and nice. I mean, to be honest with you, when I used to sit ringside for some garden shows and Mel Phillips was taking the jackets, I mean, Mel Phillips, to be honest with you, was nice also. I mean, I don't recall. I mean, I was, 13, 14 at the time? Someone asked me years ago, do you remember if Mel Phillips ever looked at your feet? I'm like, no. But I used to sit there with my grandmother, and then a couple of years later with Georgie Ann, God rest her soul. We would sit like first or second row, and Mel Phillips would always hang around ringside. He would always stay around the first row, and he would walk by and he would mingle and just have casual conversation. You would have never thought that he was what he was. But I was about 13, 14 at the time, you know, when I first got eyes on him, and didn't think that he was, maybe I was 15 at the time. I think I was 14 or 15 at the time. But so one of my friends was like, do you remember him looking at your feet? I'm like, no. Like, you know, because you know the stories that have come around, so. Ultra wants to know, when I used to DJ, how many Michael Jackson songs did I mix up? Not many. I mean, I was a Michael Jackson fan, but once he grew out his hair and did the bad, I just couldn't get into it. I never liked to mix his stuff. You know, like back, you know, like we used to mix Thriller a lot. We always fuck with Vincent Price. His voice was always fun to do. You know, I have one of my old tapes somewhere. I mean, problem is I can't share it here because I'll get hit with copyrights. But, you know, on Patreon, sometimes we share some audio. Not as a pay grab, but, you know, Discord, it's a lot easier to get away with stuff. But never really liked to mix Michael Jackson stuff. Never really did. I would mix Prince 1,000 times more than Michael Jackson. So, you want to know something? Kishindo Kevin, you bring up Backlund versus Bret Hart, Survivor Series, Backlund versus Diesel, Backlund versus Darren Young. Backlund wanted to be president. Backlund versus, I'll say this in closing, Backlund versus Bret Hart on WWF Superstars is my favorite WWF Superstars match of all time. They went 30 or 40 minutes. Jim Ross was on commentary. Just think about that. Jim Ross on commentary on WWF Superstars. He did commentary. That match is my favorite WWF Superstars match of all time. It's an epic match, and I do air it on my history show. Believe it or not, this coming week is when Bob Backlund announced he was going to run for president. I met Bob Backlund in Madison Square Garden, and I met Bob Backlund at the Nassau Coliseum. I still have in my office. If I remember this week, I will bring it home and I will show it to you. Bob Backlund, and I'll share a very quick story some of you will get a kick out of. Bob Backlund, in whatever year it was, 1998, 99, whatever it was, he was going to run for office. I think he originally was going to run for president in like 95, 96. Then ended up running for office in Connecticut, I think it was. And he was doing Backlund 2000. That's what it was, Backlund 2000. And what Bob Backlund would do is, Bob Backlund would just walk in the rafters of the Garden or the Nassau Coliseum. And once in a while, you see him walk by on camera. But he would just walk around. And then he would have a table set up, like a merchandise table, and he would sell these white T-shirts with the red bow tie, and he would sign it Backlund 2000. And I bought 2. And I met him multiple times many years earlier. And I met him at the Garden and the Nassau Coliseum, and he was mad cool. Mad cool. He didn't make me recite the fucking presidents backwards and all that other shit, but I did tell him about my memories of, seeing him in the Garden and, seeing him once at the Ridger Grove Arena with my grandmother. And he appreciated it. He really did. And Backlund, other than his horrible promos when he was the WWF champion from 78 to 83, his promos are the worst of all time, but I still enjoyed him as a wrestler. And if you watch Bob Backlund's title defenses for a majority of 78 to 83, crowd goes nuts. I always referenced the match that he had in a cage against Stan Hansen. And the weirdest thing about it, and a lot of you will remember this, is on the DTKC show, before the 24/7 channel came out online and in the WWE network, a match that I kept saying repeatedly on the shows that I always wanted to see again was Backlund versus Stan Hansen in a cage. Because I remember watching it and the crowd losing their shit. And I said this at least 10, 20 times on my shows back then. And those episodes are up again. And when WWE, launched the WWE Network, and they had that section, WWE Old School, the first match that they ever put up for Backlund was the cage match against Stan Hansen. And everybody who was tuning into our show at the time was convinced that WWE heard the shows. Because I kept saying for like 2 years, if they do, because they started with the 24/7 thing on their website, WWE 24/7. But when they started, you start hearing rumors that they were going to have the network. I'm like, they have to put that match up. I got to see that match again. I got to see. That was the first Backlund match they put up, and I was like, holy shit. But just listen to the crowd. When you start seeing Backlund escape the cage, just listen to the crowd. It's insane, the reactions he used to get. So, and the reason why we don't see legends like we used to, it's because then the generation of today, WWE has wasted too much time not acknowledging them. You see like a Dan Spivey, Backlash, or even if Morocco was in the crowd, or, Greg Valentine, we get a polite applause, but unfortunately, a lot of today's generation, WWE wasted too long from celebrating them. And it's a shame. It really is. I wish some of them would be celebrated more, but, it is what it is. And my friends, I am out of here. I want to thank you very much for spending some of your Sunday night with me. Was this therapeutic? A little bit. I apologize again about the beginning. I at least I know going forward how to handle it technically, so we don't have that 5 minutes of whatever that was. But, hopefully I'll have a good update on my mom tomorrow. And, Tuesday, I will be going to the funeral for my father-in-law. And, life goes on. We got to keep forward, man. Got to keep going. It's the only way you got to keep going, man. Got to keep going. But it's just crazy how shit happens in spurts sometimes. It's kind of like, just when you thought things could get a little bit calmer, then more shit happens. So I can only imagine what happens next. But all right, everybody, be well. If you're around tomorrow night, right after Raw, I will be right here. Same place, same bat channel, not same time. We'll be right after Raw, which will be about 10:20 in the evening. 2 weeks in a row, WWE went off the air at 10:20 instead of 10:40. So expect it around 10:20 tomorrow. We'll recap Raw. I'll share that video about that agent, and we'll get into a few other things as well. So we definitely have some stuff to get into, and hopefully have some good news. So be well, everybody. Take care. Much love.
As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a podcaster. For me to live any other way was nuts. To me, those goody-good people who worked shitty jobs for bum paychecks and took the subway to work every day and worried about their bills were dead. I mean, they were suckers. They had no balls. If I wanted something, I just took it. I ran everything. I paid the bills. I paid the host. I even paid the masked maniac. Everybody had their hands out. Everything was for the taking. We always called each other good fellas. You would always hear from somebody. You're gonna like Don Tony. He's all right. He's a good fella. He's one of us. But if you're part of my crew, nobody ever tells you they're gonna get rid of you. It doesn't happen that way. There weren't any arguments or curses like in the movies. See, your haters come with smiles. They come as your friends, the people who've claimed they care the most for your life. And now that's all over. And that's the best part. Today everything is different. There's lots of action. I don't have to wait around for everything like everyone else. Oh, I didn't get the vaccine? Fuck you, vaccine me. Oh, your delivery guy has COVID? Fuck you, feed me. Right after I moved here, I ordered egg noodles and ketchup, and I got spaghetti with meat sauce. I'm no longer an average nobody, while they get to live the rest of their lives like a bunch of schnooks.